want to give a round of applause for them for working so hard and doing different jobs and stuff like that, because we were doing it in the middle of the pandemic. It was insane, and everybody had to wear multiple hats. So yeah, it was awesome. It was a great screening.
So you're saying the production on the film was less than 3 weeks?
It was 3 weeks. We did 6 days each.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible. What is it like trying to produce a film in the midst of an ongoing pandemic? What were those challenges? What were those lessons that you learned that perhaps you could pass on to some of our aspiring filmmakers in the audience?
Well, don't shoot a film in a pandemic. That's one. No, I mean, it was pretty. It was such a small thing to put together. A single location kind of film like that. That the actual production aspects were pretty easy. It was kind of dealing with the hoops you had to jump. Thanks, guys. Have a good night. That's my cue. That's not here, actually. Karaoke. Oh. Whoop, there we go. Okay. Yeah, just dealing with things like the actors' unions and stuff like that, because they were the ones that had all the rules. So dealing with SAG. When you're, a tiny movie like this, you're not really priority, so it was really just kind of waving your hands and be like, hey, look at us, we need approvals, and that was kind of the biggest thing, because it wasn't until like a week before production that we did have approvals. But yeah, I mean, it was just like a bunch of friends, a bunch of just the cast that I got, which I was so thrilled to have, them just coming out and just having fun for 3 weeks. It was just it's kind of a whirlwind experience, but it was pretty rad.
And co-starring in the film is the First Lady of Horror, Barbara Crampton.
Yeah.
Our comeback to the theaters was a presentation of Reanimator, which was her breakthrough film. Those of you may not know the storyline title. But to be able to see her in your movie, what was it like trying to attract her into the story, and what was she like on set?
She was awesome. She works with a production company, and she's producing films like Jacob's Wife and stuff like that now. But we'd been talking about some other projects that never went anywhere. But when I had the script for this, I was like, oh, I need a Vera. And I reached out to her on a whim. I was like, hey, look, it's like 2 days. Just come out, hang with us for a little bit. And she was basically just like, fuck yeah, let's do it. So it was pretty awesome for her to just say yes right away. I guess the material kind of spoke to her. But she came out, and she couldn't have been sweeter. And that's what you're hoping for when you have someone like that has a lot of cachet and has been in the business for a while. She comes to this small set with 6 people doing everything. I picked her up from the airport. I drove her, to her hotel and stuff like that. So it was just kind of a reality check, I'm sure, for her a little bit. Be like, holy shit, this is a small ass movie. But when you get someone like her and she comes out and she performs, it's just it elevates everyone on the crew. I think they're just like she's doing good work. We're all just gonna step up our game. And when they're as nice and sweet as Barb is, it's just like you can't ask for anything better.
Well, when it comes to a film like Superhost, you gotta pay off with the actually casting the Superhost.
Yeah.
Was your current actor your first choice? How was the casting process for the Superhost?
So we had talked to a number of people, and it was just kind of a schedule thing. Like we talked to one actress who's, and she was doing a Netflix show at the time, so she couldn't do it without us pushing. And we actually thought about doing it, pushing it to January so she could do it. But it was just kind of like, we got to do this now. Like, who knows what's going to happen in January. So we talked to Sierra McCormick, and she's a awesome actress that
we had the premiere of her new film, We Need to Do Something. Those of you who are here, you may have seen her in that new film.
So she was actually shooting that at the time, and she just said, I'm so sorry, I would love to do it, but I can't. But my friend Grace, she would be perfect for this. And so I looked her up, and I was just like, oh my God, she's like a former Disney girl, this is hilarious, because I think when you're doing press for Disney, Disney stuff, like you're putting on that face, So when I talked to her, I was just like, that's exactly what Rebecca is. She's this girl pretending to be another girl just to please this audience. And so, yeah, it was just it was such a natural fit. And when she showed up, and she's just this big ball of energy, it was just, we're just like, holy shit, she is Rebecca, like 100%. So it was a lot of fun. We would just sort of roll long takes of her and just let her do it. And he'd be like, okay, do it again, a little more Valley Girl. And she would just do it again and just sort of spit it out. And it was actually the hardest thing was editing her, because every shot she would have 3 or 4 takes that were just so funny that you're just like, God damn it, picking one was really difficult.
Well, on that note, it's a question for me of tone. The first 2 films, which again we had the honor of hosting at our festival years back, Stillborn, and what was the second film? Mark? Z. Those were much more serious, more dramatic. This is, borderline dark comedy.
Right.
What inspired you to change tone for this?
I mean, Z and Stillborn, they were kind of based off of where I was in parenthood. So, I did Stillborn after having a baby. I did Z after having my kid go to school for the first time. And it was kind of like I'm in this lull of nothing really exciting's happening with my kids. So there was nothing to really draw from. But I also wanted to take a break from that really oppressive feeling of just like dark and depressed woman is fending off something for her kid. So when I was actually doing the festival run for Superhost, I stayed at an Airbnb in Toronto, and right when I got there, I took a pee and tried flushing, didn't work, and I'm like, okay, this isn't gonna work, I gotta get this fixed. So I texted the guy, he's just like, oh, I'll send someone out, I'll go out, and then he showed up, he's like, hey, I'm so sorry, and I just kind of was like standing back, and I even made the dumb joke, I was like, oh, glad it's number one, huh? And so I was just like, watching this guy plunge the toilet for me, which he did fix, and I was just like, this is such an absurd situation that I'm staying in some dude's house. We don't know each other. He's just like helping me because he has to. It was just this awkward exchange of pleasantries, and then he was off, and I was just sitting there like, man, that was weird. And so that just sort of started this chain of events of like, oh man, Airbnbs are really messed up when you think about it. It's like, I mean, what if the person isn't who they claim they are? And it kind of just rolled, quickly spiraled into this character, Rebecca, who is not who she portrays herself to be. And then, I mean, who doesn't want to shit on YouTubers? So that was a big part of it.
Audience, does anyone have a question before? Go ahead.
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have a question. So, kind of in the beginning with Teddy, at night he saw, I don't know if it was like an entity.
It was probably just an animal. I mean, she answered it for you. He was tired. It was probably just an animal. I mean, it kind of was. But I know what your question is, and yeah, that's the answer.
So towards the end, to what extent can the movie be seen as like a take on female empowerment?
I don't know. I just think that this one character just found herself in a situation where she had to handle it the best she could. I mean, I think it's more of like The Boy Who Cried Wolf more to me, where you've got these guys that are these YouTubers that are trying to put out content to attract viewers, and the more earnest stuff they do doesn't get that. So, obviously they did something with the bitch from Draper, and that got hits, and then they've kind of gotten into this lull, and so their attempt to go back to sort of, bit them in the ass. But I wouldn't say it's anything with female empowerment or anything. I think it's just happenstance that she is that. I think there's like an alternate reality where there's a Rebecca version of this movie where you're watching her cleaning, trying to flush down these dentures out of Betty's mouth, and it's fucking stuck, and then all of a sudden there's a chime saying, oh, there's someone at the door, and she's like, ah, shit, and she like runs around, and it's just there's this whole parallel story going on where she's trying to clean up the mess, and if those guys just didn't try and exploit her, they'd probably be fine, They got caught because they were just trying to get clicks out of this thing. So I would say it's just more an indictment of the sort of exploitation culture than anything.
Yeah.
I felt that.
Cool, man.
Correct.
Cool.
I'm wondering, it's like the Betty and Luke, or it sounds similar to Mary. Is there any reference to the Conway 2 title?
No, it wasn't. No, it's not. It was just. I think it was another name, and my brother said something else, and I was just like, oh, okay, that's cool. That was about as much thought as I put into it. It just had to have something that sounded a little older than, this character Rebecca. So it was just like Betty Lou 52. It had this sing-songy quality to it that I thought was pretty funny.
It's also a very sweet sounding name, so it sounds like someone you would trust.
Right.
Betty Lou. Hey, let's go over to Betty Lou. She's making pie.
For sure. And it's like, again, these people on the internet might not be who they say they are. It's got the catfishing culture a little bit in there too.
Well, if you're looking for more story ideas, I recommend trying Craigslist.
Any other audience questions?
Yes.
Me?
Yes.
Well, first I just wanted to say bravo with the humor in this,
Cool.
because a lot of the movies that I've seen that are using the internet don't tend to get it right, and I thought this was really well done with
Cool.
with the current generation of internet humor.
Nice.
My question relates to your inspiration regarding internet culture and the humor of this film. There's films like Ingrid Goes West and Spree that came out last year that this kind of reminded me of. I just kind of wanted to know where your head was at with other influences while you were making this.
It's a good question. I don't know. I do remember when I finished the first draft, Dave Franco announced The Rental, and I was just like, you've got to be kidding me, because I didn't know anything about it. I still haven't watched it yet, because I was just like devastated by the idea that someone was doing it. And when I sent the script to Osric, he's like, hey, you know they just made a movie called The Rental, right? And I was like, shut up, it's fine, it'll be fine. That was a year ago when this comes out. But so I don't know what that's about. I think it's pretty similar, but not at all. So I don't know. I think it's more of a slasher. I'll watch it soon. But I mean, I don't know if there's really many films that I was sort of inspired by. I was just like, I don't know. The pandemic was just such a down point that it was more, I wasn't really watching that much or consuming that much. I was just like focusing entirely on this and making other little things. Yeah, I wish there was something that I could point to and just be like, oh, I totally wanted to reference this, but it was just kind of taking these two different ideas, this Creep style film and then this whole YouTube culture, and kind of blending them together. I mean, Creep was obviously a huge inspiration, I should say that. I mean, you know, when you look at the YouTube comments for the trailers, a lot of like, it's just female creep. And it's like, I mean, kind of, but the idea going into it was like, can I make a lovable antagonist? You know, someone that you love, you're applauding at the end after she kills the main characters. It's like, that was the goal, and you know, hearing the reaction here, I think we did it.
So, all of you love this film. Is that a So, where else can they see this film if they want to tell their friends about it?
Well, you can't see it at any other festivals, but on September 2nd, it's going to be coming out on Shudder. So the long weekend's hidden, and you can all sit down and watch this film.
We have a giveaway that we wanted to do.
Oh yeah, shit, it's up on my seat.
That's okay.
Okay, cool.
We have a giveaway of what?
I brought a copy of Z. It's a limited edition from Canada, so it actually has all the bonus features and shit. Can't buy it in the States. But I'll go, maybe, I think Judith is heading up. Thanks, Judith. Yeah, I'll give you a copy of it.
Let's give a hand to Judith.
So just, they asked me, you know, I've done this a couple times now where I have a trivia question. It's always a pain in the ass to think of something that's not too hard and not too easy. So the question is, this might be too hard. If it is and no one answers, I'll think of something easier. But what was the first alarm code that they tried and it didn't work?
It was 2342.
That's right. It's actually two of the lost numbers. That's why I picked it. So it's 4, 8, 15, 23, 42. But yeah, that's it. You get it, man. Good job. It was only uttered once, so good job.
Can we get one photo of you with the audience? This
Of course.
is your first and only
Yeah.
screening. So
Let's do it.
are you guys cool with us having?
Yeah.